There are a lot of frauds who are psychics, but I don't think all of them are.
It's money. There's money to be made, and you're preying on vulnerable people who want to talk to the people of the past, their family members who they miss, and you're charging money to do that. It's just I have a lot of issues with, is this really real?
Yeah, except the problem is you're skirting the real issue. Because yes, there's a lot of money to be made, and yes, there are clearly charlatans out there. But are there people who legit can do this?
The dreams and goals that I see you wanting to achieve, are they career?
Yes.
Because I see career focus, this talent, this career. So yeah, do you want to do TV? You got to do TV.
I want to give a little bit of credence to it because there are two different types of skeptics, right? There are the naysayers who were like, this never happens, this is not real, there's no such thing as a psychic medium. And then there are the skeptics who are saying, I want to believe it, but prove it, sort of thing.
And who's Desi Boy?
Oh, no.
That made me cry. Wow, that's his dad.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, there's an interesting thing that I heard from a friend of mine, anecdote. His mom came in, he's an only child, and she said, I want to do something fun. I want to go see a psychic medium. So they sat down with this medium, and during the reading, she turned over to his mom, and she said, does he know about your other son? And my friend was confused because he's an only child, and he's like, what other son? Looked over to his mom, weeping. Before he was born, she conceived another boy with her husband and they miscarried and she never told him. How could you know that?
I'm trying to see, there's one specific bird he sends you guys, so I'm just gonna see which one it is. Okay. He's telling me that he sends you guys cardinals.
Yes.
Mediums, again, they're the ones who talk to dead ancestors or dead people from vulnerable people who are looking to connect for closure. And then so they use techniques called cold reading, which they just learn the body language off the person they've just met, and they suggest questions based off that, or hot reading, which many of them, especially who do readings online, are known to do, and that's when they gather intel ahead of time.
They cheat.
I gotta tell you guys, I didn't believe in this at all. One of my friends talked to this psychic, and the psychic looked at my friend and said, I think you're pregnant. She's like, no, I'm not. What are you talking about? She was pregnant and didn't know it. She said, you should talk to this woman. And I did, and it was my phone, and it was mind-blowing.
Harvey, you are the most Googleable person
ever. No, I swear, first of all, it was before TMZ. I talked to her, and she told me something about my grandfather who I had never met. And I went to my dad, and this stuff was true. It was obscure, weird stuff. And it was all true.
He keeps telling me he's got your dog. He's got the lab. He keeps telling me it's the lab. The Labrador's here.
Possibly.
He's also telling me I have to say Billy. Billy's with him. It's gonna be either William or Bill.
That's the dog.
Shut the hell up! That was his name!
There may be some questions surrounding psychics and psychic mediums, but you know, in addition to it being profitable, it sometimes can be a real life tool. Law enforcement consults a lot of psychics and psychic mediums in order to solve crimes.
But a lot of that's BS too.
And I'll say that we did a study at LAPD where we compared the use of psychics to investigators in solving homicide cases, and we completely debunked. They were not effective at all. In fact, what they do is they distract investigative efforts from genuine resources to investigations.
There are skeptics who want to believe, and there are skeptics who say, I'm never going to believe, but then something happens where they give you one detail that nobody else knows. Maybe you don't even know.
And it's not a yes or no thing. It's a specific thing.
Can I ask you, honey, do you understand what I'm saying when I say that she was, oh, by the way, she said, how's Jerry?
He's doing great. He's at work.
Okay.
I do think that there are some people that are just like, you know, trying to have snake oil. They're trying to just profit. But I do think that people have gifts, and those rare people that do have gifts, they also live here and they need to make money. So, you know, you gift the gifter.
The Northridge quakes. It's like, why didn't a psychic come forward and say, hey, this quake is coming, everybody prepare? But they didn't. Like, there's so many disasters.
No, but they can't tell everything that's going on in the world.
A psychic can supposedly look into the future.
So Ashley is dripping with skepticism because I can see it on her face.
So much. Let's go over how this would have to work.
Give us the math, girl.
Yeah, we can't see time. We experience time. We can see space. Right? For example, you can't see the moment I began this sentence. It's a manipulation of space, right? So that would imply that these psychics can tell me exactly what's happening in some random town in Australia right now. But they can't. It would imply so many other skill sets. You can't cherry pick the moments when it works and the moments that it doesn't. That's coincidence, that's not scientific evidence.
But then notice how mediums are so prominent in Western culture. For cultures that believe in reincarnation, there are no dead people to contact because there's no spirits floating around. So it's so just specific to the culture in the West.
Which means it's just a belief.
Is anybody here a twin?
I'm best friends with twins.
Do they have this weird connection where it's almost telepathic?
They have a weird connection, but I think it is because they are sisters, not because they are twins. However, they are not identical.
Identical twins, there is some evidence that there's something telepathic between the two.
There's a lot of anecdotal evidence, and you'll find it more so in adult twins. They'll say things like, I feel when my sister's had a baby. I feel when my sister has had an injury. And it's kind of this kind of unspoken phenomenon where you can kind of, you know, sense your twin's dilemma or circumstance.
Parents can sense their children when their children are injured because they are so close. But with twins, you guys have shared a womb. They have been together side by side since the day of conception.
But the thing that contests this is that a lot of these cases with twins, we're only hearing about the cases that are miraculous, right? Where we see twins who supposedly have this connection. Think of how many other cases there are that never see the light of day, of twins who sit next to each other and they go, I don't know what the that one's thinking.
Right, but that doesn't mean they all have it. But I got some examples.
Okay, I'm going to see how your twin telepathy works. Make a funny face. Turn around.
There's only 2 options.
That's exactly the thing. 50-50.
There aren't 2 options. I've seen at least 3
That's a 50-50 chance.
Put 1 foot behind you. Take your hand and put up a number 1 through 5.
The most common choice.
3.
It's 3.
Raise your hand. Spin in a circle.
I like how everyone spun in that direction, though.
No,
they're all right-handed. Because they're all right-handed.
Dance in place.
Touch your elbow. Yeah, the same person.
But is this not proving the point? The things that we see online are the most miraculous videos, the most miraculous examples, so we see this and we say, oh my God,
and how do we
there
know
really
they
is
didn't stage
telepathy.
this ahead of time? It's TikTok, for God's sake.
No, there are plenty of people that I've seen do it live on like TikTok Live where their parents have set it up or they've set it up themselves. So I think there is a chance that they would be doing the same thing.
Can kids take on the personality of their parents?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And can they have the talents of their parents?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
DNA, sure.
if a parent can pass down things about them to their children, why wouldn't you think children who share the womb, who develop at the same time, develop in the same body with the same fluids, that maybe that there is even a stronger connection between them versus a parent and a child?
Because that's environmental. What you're suggesting is environmental,
No,
it's not
I don't
telepathy.
think, I'm not suggesting environmental. I'm saying it's more nature than nurture.
I think it's
With
a
parents.
sixth sense, but also there's a couple of studies where twins were separated, identical twins, identical triplets were separated at birth, and then when they found each other, they realized like, oh, you didn't like math and you really like spelling? Oh, me too. Oh, you do this, you do that? Oh, me too. Oh,
But
this
it speaks to the genetic inheritability of those kinds of issues.
That's totally true. And also, this is cherry picking in full effect. We're seeing the little moments where they're perfect. Even if you let those videos roll, there's other times where you're like, wow, this looks completely different.
What about like a parent, I mean, these terrible examples where a parent knows their child got hurt or even killed, and they just know it when they're in bed.
Because they know their kids' habit patterns. I
Yes.
haven't heard from them at this time.
Yes.
That's not a good sign.
Yes.
You kind of know
No. But like at
the
moment,
routine
they're
of
like,
your
my
kids.
hand hurts, and they find out someone got burned, or all of a sudden, you know, my chest is, and the person's having a heart attack. So we talked about this in other cases where the cellular connection, right? Once you're part of a cellular system,
This isn't
you're
cellular.
always connected to theory, right? So you could be thousands of miles apart, and there might be some energy we don't understand that's communicating with you.
No,
Hold on, Ashley went on it.
Let's define the
You're gonna stand up.
let's define the science behind this, right? So brainwaves have electrical impulses. Brainwaves are incredibly weak and incredibly
As
slow.
far as you
Compared to, no, this is science. This is like, yeah, no, this is definitive. So radio waves, for example, extremely high energy. It's like 500 million oscillations in a second. Whereas human brainwaves, it's like 10 or 100. They're incredibly weak. In order for a person to detect the brainwaves of somebody else, they would have to hear over all the noise of all of this electrical equipment. That would be like being at a concert and trying to hear the wings of a butterfly flap, right? So it's not about transmission, because there is transmission. That's not the issue. The issue would be the receiving of it.
But then how do you explain subtleties that people are able to absorb?
Well, actually, Andrew said something kind of interesting. You were talking about genetics that are passed down at times. There is a theory of epigenetics, which is really interesting. The idea that inherited trauma can be something that is passed down to an offspring. So in this instance,
For like
it's
2
possible that
generations.
could be,
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I've heard that one.
They've actually tested this in rabbits where I think they gave them something like cherries and they would shock the mother every time she got a cherry. So when she eventually had offspring, those babies had an aversion to cherries.
I was gonna say, I feel like at that point you're tapping into a sixth sense, right? Like, how are you able to kind of detect what somebody else is feeling, what somebody else is doing? Like, I can't explain it. I just sense it. I feel something hurting, so that means that such and such has happened.
I have 2 older sisters, and we're all so similar, no surprise, because of DNA, but also environment. I'm sure we can finish each other's sentences despite the age gap because of how we were raised.
Nature and nurture combined.
Yes.
What? Wait, look at each other right now.
So there's a town in France, it's called Lourdes, which is a kind of a shrine to the Virgin Mary. 3 million people a year visit this place. And there are all these stories about people who have these miraculous recoveries that are hard to explain medically.
This is actually common amongst the Catholic Church because this is not the only place where miracles happen. With the shrine that you were talking about, there's been reports of 7,000 miracles. However, only 70 have been confirmed by the Catholic Church.
Okay, that part. So I gotta believe that there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who have visited this sanctuary. And if only 70 are, being confirmed as miracles, I'm sorry, is the water just selecting who they're going to give a miracle to and who they're not?
That's such a minuscule number that could just represent a spontaneous healing, which we see with many different medical conditions.
Well, maybe they just don't come forward to talk about it.
Or maybe
they don't
the
wanna be
healing was
ridiculed.
not the healing that they actually needed. Maybe they needed their heart healed and not their body healed.
Placebo.
They have revamped their policies recently. The protocol of what is considered a miracle, because they are concerned about this, that people can come forward and say, this is happening, it goes on social media, and then they promote it, and so they're like, look, we gotta have a standard. So they hadn't re-updated that for like hundreds of years, and they finally did that. So I think we should give them credit for that.
But what's the expertise to say that this is a miracle?
That's the thing. What it revolves around is the label of miracle, because science is not going to accept it no matter what.
We accept things all of the time. That's our whole thing. That's our shtick.
A miracle is not within the understanding of science the way that
so
it's
no
been
critical
framed.
thinking. That's convenient.
No,
for
it's
faith.
not. It's just not.
The doctors that they have there actually have come up with their own criteria, and it's a little vague, but they say you have to have a severe disease diagnosis and then be cured instantly, suddenly, completely, and long-lasting. And then there's no scientific or medical explanation after consulting with hundreds of doctors that can explain it.
There's a woman named Sister Bernadette Moriot who was on 60 Minutes, and she says she fit that profile to a T.
Then I felt some kind of heat coming into my body. I felt relaxed, but I didn't really know what that was meaning. And in my room, I heard this inner voice again telling me, take all your braces off. I didn't think twice, and I started taking my foot brace off. And my foot, that used to be crooked, was straight, and I could actually put it on the ground without feeling any pain.
All of a sudden, your foot was straight.
Yes, like that, like the way it is just now. And so I kept going.
Can we remove the supernatural or religious aspect from this? I'm curious about the conversation of whether or not somebody under a placebo can have such an intense psychological and physical reaction to something they can actually be healed. That's interesting to think about.
I think the predicate of that may be wrong, because you're assuming they have a real problem that's miraculously gets fixed. What if the problem isn't real but psychological, and you're able to jump that barrier?
I think what you're talking about is the psychosomatic illnesses. Like there was all this, what they called hysteria back in the time of Freud, that would be miraculously cured with hypnosis. And I think that faith, you know, believing in something, suggestibility, can be an explanation for a lot of this stuff.
It's mind over matter in a way.
Yeah, but I love that in this case, her doctor recommended she go to a shrine.
I mean, it's kind of like your medical professional being like, you know, I really don't know, maybe you should try smoking weed. Like, doctors will say that.
But weed has efficacy.
And at that point, if you've tried every single thing, hey, I know that you are a nun, why don't you try going to this place and maybe God will heal you?
The Catholic Church, though, they're quick to jump on an unexplained phenomenon being a miracle, and then explain phenomenon. They're like, oh, that's not science.
If there is someone who believes this and wants to go, there is no right of anybody else to say, that's
oh yeah,
not
no,
real.
if it makes you feel better, totally do it,
But
for
that's
sure.
it. It's more here.
And sadly, I think when people are faced with like terminal illness and stuff like that, they would do anything.
Faith is a powerful healer for a lot of people.
But sometimes people with terminal illnesses who do that are not well served by going to places that are, you know, fool's gold.
I just real quick think with this, it's more of we don't fully know the science yet, as opposed to calling it divine intervention. That's
Yeah.
how I'm
Oh,
gonna
I love
conclude
that.
it.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I'm going to confess something. I have had an encounter with the spirit. I'll tell you about it in a minute. But the reason I'm raising this is there is this thing, especially in England, in pubs that are just freaky, where human beings aren't moving things, but things are moving. Examples.
That's pretty cool.
Whoa.
Wow.
Wait, one more time.
What was that?
Yeah, nah.
Wow.
He's like, what'd you do to my drink?
How do you explain that?
I've actually had that happen. We were investigating a pub, and while they were there setting up the cameras, a wine glass in the rack came flying off, and they caught it on camera.
Can I just say, from working in restaurants though, sometimes when you rack up glasses and they're hot and they meet something that's not hot, they tend to explode.
But why do they fall?
Well, sometimes, I mean, it's just the force of the explosion just knocks them over.
At the same time, some of them had very specific motions attached to them falling. Like, it wasn't like they were on the edge. It wasn't like they were imbalanced. It was just like here, and then it was like, ooh.
Right, but that's weird.
And if it was an uneven surface thing, more than one glass would fall.
Right.
I also think like pubs, when you think about these old pubs, there are places where people partied, there are places where people had a good time.
Got murdered.
There are places where people were murdered. There are pubs that have prisons or underneath that people were in abysmal conditions. So I absolutely think that there are spirits that are haunting these pubs, maybe to have a good time or maybe it's for vengeance.
Wait, that is kind of amazing though. That's amazing, the idea of like my unfinished business is to finish my drink. That
would be me.
I'm all for that.
And from a cultural perspective, England is a hot spot for ghost stories. It's very much ingrained into their
Could that be
culture.
motivated by money though? Because also like that drives tourism. So if I were to say
Very
like, hey
true.
everybody, my house is haunted, I could start charging $30 for a tour.
No, can we replay one of the videos? Can we see another video?
Yeah, let's play it one more time.
Uneven surface.
That's not an uneven
That's not
surface.
an uneven
I mean,
surface.
one glass fell.
How do you know?
That's temperature. That's a temperature shift.
Maybe.
A lot of those glasses were narrow and top heavy too, and you put them on a little bit of an angle, they're gonna go.
No, no.
Oh, I've got it. The bottom's wet, and you know when it's wet, it starts to slide.
But it didn't slide.
Well, I can see from your faces, I'm just observing from your faces, none of you have ever been on a paranormal investigation and had an object sitting there and watched it with your own eyes fly across the room. Until you see that, I think you should be silent.
Is the logical explanation that it's strings, that it's a hoax? Is that the idea? Because these videos, truth be told, they look like they're open for business, so it's a bit of a...
40% of people actually believe in ghosts and spirits, and 20% actually claim that they've had, you know, personal kinds of encounters like these.
How many people in here believe in spirits?
Absolutely.
I do.
And how many don't?
I didn't vote.
Open mind.
I'm just going to tell you. In 1990, my partner died. Died at home, and it was really sad. And I lived in this house for over 8 years, and I never had this happen. But in the 2 weeks after he died, at 2 in the morning, the stereo would go on, and the lights would go on. And it only happened for 2 weeks after he died, and then it stopped. And it never happened before, and it never happened after, and it happened right at that time, and I wasn't imagining anything.
I'm open-minded to it. I would consider myself at worst agnostic about it. I think that you know, how can we possibly know every manifestation of, you know, human or other experience, you know, in this world and be completely closed to it? Energy can never be created or destroyed, only change its form. So,
I think about this all the time when I think about, I'm like, if there is an afterlife, who's up there? Like, pilgrims?
I don't want to go up there, dude. I'm good. Take me out.
What are we going to talk about?
See, I would even argue this. I think you can not believe in religion at all, but believe in spirits.
Absolutely.
I'm more inclined to believe in that, something metaphysical or whatever, than I am in some book some people wrote.
some literal
Yeah.
interpretation of what happens.
What we say in New England is if you ask a New Englander, do you believe in ghosts? They say no. But if you ask, have you seen one? They all say yes. So that's the way we handle it. You know, yeah.
So there is a woman who got in a really bad car accident. Her car was totaled. And she took a bunch of pictures of the accident scene, which you're supposed to do, right? One of the pictures totally freaked her out. Now look at this. By the side door, there's this image there. Now, she says it freaked her out and reminded her of her grandfather. I don't know what that is, but it looks ghostly. I don't know how else to say it.
We can see the actual silhouette of the person too, where you see the shoulders, the shirt that falls, but to me, if something like that coincides almost perfectly with an oncoming light, I do question what it is I'm looking at. But part of me thinks this could be pareidolia. Am I assigning a face to something inanimate where it doesn't fit?
Wait a minute, so you don't think that's the shadow of a person?
It's the same thing, again, to reference space. We thought we saw a face on Mars before, and it was just a rock formation. We see it all over the planet. And so, yeah, I won't lie, it looks oddly like a person, even like a collar, but I think we also see that because it's familiar.
So this is like the cloud that looks like a penis.
I think that we all have guardian angels and our ancestors are looking out for us. And so if this was a really bad car accident where your car is totaled, it could have been a near-death situation, maybe fate stepped in.
Have you guys heard about a bunch of these instances where people get in car accidents and then all of a sudden, you know, they say that somebody was there kind of looking out for them, specifically with car accidents?
There have been tons of studies done on people who undergo some serious trauma. And what psychologists have learned is that their recollection, their memory of providing a narrative of what they experienced and what happened is highly unreliable. Highly unreliable because there's so much going on that the system...
Dissociation, for
Yes.
one.
You know what kind of kills it for me, honestly? I think there is a case to be made that there's such a thing as spirits. But ghosts, no. And if that image exists, why aren't we seeing that image all over the place? Why isn't she seeing the image at home when she gets in a fight with her husband, or her kid does something bad, or she's going through some trauma or health issue? You wouldn't see the image of somebody if it's a spirit.
And
to
it
me.
is very
To me.
common for human beings. It's a very comforting thing. How many times you've been walking around on a sidewalk with a friend and they're like, that butterfly, oh, that's my grandma saying hi to me.
Well, they're crazy. They're just crazy.
But it happens all the time. So my point is human beings have shown that we want to look to something for comfort. It's very comforting to say, oh, that's my grandma looking down at me, that bird, that butterfly.
So I am utterly confused by something that is coming out of the world of Alexa. There are voices coming from this contraption that I can't explain. So this is just a little bit of what people are recording from Alexa that they didn't prompt.
Something else spoke right after that. It didn't recognize the voice. And there was some other thingy after that as well. The voice. Mysterious voice.
What the heck is that?
It's a drop-in.
I don't think that there are any ghosts or any spirits haunting. The Alexa app has the drop-in feature, and I believe that you can utilize that app to kind of stimulate sounds.
Can security for an Alexa be so lax and so penetrable that somebody from afar could drop in and maybe not even say something, but silently listen to
That's really frightening.
I do have to say, I love the idea, though, of a ghost using an Alexa as the apparatus of choice. Like, where are the days of, like, poltergeist with, like, the static TV? Like, where are the clown, like, stuffed animals strangling you?
Or possession.
So EVPs, right? Electronic voice phenomena. Voices show up on electronic and analog recordings that weren't there. I've had plenty of evidence of that. So what if that voice was actually picked up in the Alexa app that is some other, I don't know, spirit there, and she's responding to that? I'm not saying that's what's happening in this particular video, but to me, I'm convinced that EVPs are real and they happen. So what if Alexa's now talking to the ghost in your house?
But wait a minute, I'm not suggesting that this is a ghost or anything like that. What I'm suggesting is Alexa able to do things that we don't know, spy on us or something. Because when I hear this and it's unprompted, there's nobody at Amazon that's saying, oh, let's screw with so-and-so. I mean, they're not doing that.
I actually have a theory that everybody is assigned a CIA agent, that like maybe this one CIA agent has like 10 people and their job all day is just to watch those 10 people.
Now I see why I'm here.
Personally, the idea behind these programs is that they're supposed to be listening all of the time, because if you say Siri at any moment, it needs to know that you've said, hey Siri, or hey Alexa. They're programmed by us to be flexible enough to identify you at all times.
Is there more to Alexa's programming that we could consider to be sentient? How much do we actually know of the AI that goes into Alexa?
AI doesn't mean that it can think for itself. That's a whole different level of programming that we have not accomplished at all. Everything that AI does is by our programming. It doesn't jump and it doesn't land unless we tell it to do.
Yeah, but what if Amazon is programming it to do weird things that we don't know?
That would be more likely than it thinking.
Amazon's fine print about their algorithm is actually very vague. And so if Alexa has such vague boundaries, that means she can do anything that she wants to listen in on my conversation, and her job is to help me. And she thinks that by helping me is to listen to me all the time.
I'm really suspicious of Alexa and Siri.
Well, you should be.
Of what it does that we don't know.
To think otherwise is naive.
Yeah, I agree.
So you basically, you pay for a spy to be in your home.
I'm all for advancement technology. I like convenience. I'm lazy. I'm a homebody. I got nothing to hide. Spy all you want.
That's like saying, oh, I don't care about the Fourth Amendment. Just come in and search my house. I got nothing to hide. We have it for a reason.
But if they've been able to circumvent it, then...
And it's benign now. What happens when it's no longer benign?
You say benign. What if stuff is being stored that we don't know about?
It is being stored.
Every conversation you have at home, you know, with people, jokes you tell that don't sound like jokes? What if in 5 years, all of a sudden, the storage bin just opens up and it's like, oh my God, you kept all that on me?
Surprise.